Hey everyone, my name is Nathan Allison, and today I'm going to go over the presentation that I went over last night at the parent informational meeting concerning my trips next year. And so we'll start off looking at the itineraries for the two trips, and of course the dates when we're planning on leaving, and then we'll go back through the presentation I went through looking at why it is I take students overseas, and really the benefits of travel, why I travel with EF Tours, and then of course we'll get into what's included on the trip, what's not included, and then how to sign up. So first off, I've been teaching at Marcus since 2006, and I've been leading trips since 2008. Now, I've led a trip every summer except for the summer of 2011 when we had our second child, but every other year I've been leading a trip and absolutely love it. And I honestly believe this is the best experience I provide for my students, are these trips. I haven't seen anything else impact them at the level that these trips do. So go ahead and just jumping in. Looking at the first trip for next year is the Best of Belize. This will leave at the beginning of spring break. Right now the requested departure date is March 10th, which would be that Saturday. And the dates can change by a day or two. Now obviously since it's right around spring break, we're a little bit more restrictive on how much that can change. So there's a possibility they can miss a day of school, but it should be no more than that. For any reason. So no more than a day. I mean, 2 I think would be a little bit extreme if that were to happen. But I don't really see that happening. It's a pretty short trip. All right, so it's a 7-day trip. Of course, that also includes travel time and stuff like that. So day 1, we fly to Belize. Of course, the nice thing is it's close. Now, most likely it won't be a direct flight. It possibly could, but good chance it won't. So in that case, we would fly probably from Dallas to Houston, then down to Belize, or Dallas to Miami, and then down to Belize from there. So we'll go there, we'll meet our tour director. Our tour director is with us the entire time, so they're in charge of everything, all the logistics, everything. So that way I'm able to just focus on the students and taking care of them. And then from there I'm just going to hit some highlights. We're going to travel by boat to the New River Lagoon. We're going to visit an old sugar mill. And then, so basically, as I kind of go through this, also some Mayan ruins and things like that as we go through. But really, this is going to be a mixture of history, seeing Mayan ruins and learning about the culture there. And then, of course, geography, environmental science, biology. They're going to be learning, all of that throughout this tour. So even as we're doing active things like cave tubing, the zip line tour through the jungle and stuff like that, and the jungle survival hike, things like that, they are learning about the environment around them. So it's not like we're just zip lining and that's it. We're zip lining, but we're learning while we're doing it, and so it makes learning obviously a lot more fun. And then San Ignacio, and then Zunantunec, I think. So we're going to go there. We're going to visit some Mayan ruins. We're going to visit a local school so they can see, what it's like going to school there and what those school kids are learning. And then moving on, we'll go to the Belize. We'll go back to Belize City, go to the Belize Zoo there. We'll do a water taxi to the Ambergris Caye. And there is where they have a marine reserve where we can go snorkeling. And then also these are extra that they can add in Snuba or Sea Trek. I forgot exactly what Snuba is, but I know Sea Trek is where, so instead of scuba diving, basically, as you're going down a ladder into the ocean, they put a giant helmet on you, and it weighs 60 or 70 pounds, and it allows you to walk on the ocean floor. And so, of course, you're only like 20 feet deep, but and then there's, of course, a tube pumping air in, so you're able to breathe and walk around and stuff like that, and see things down in the ocean. And it's a really cool experience, especially, since we're not doing scuba diving. It's a safe, easy way to do that. And then we'll come home after that. So that's the Belize trip. So Belize is going to be, much more adventurous, on the adventurous side. So, if your child likes, things like this, like zip lining and caving and things of that sort, snorkeling, really being outdoorsy, adventurous, this is a great trip for them. And then the European tour is quite a bit different. So, obviously it's going to be very active, but in a different way. So this trip is a 12-day trip. And this one, requested departure date right now is June 14th. So it'll be plenty of time after, graduation and things like that. And this is basically the route we're going to take. So we'll fly into Berlin and we'll go to Dresden, Prague, Krakow. We'll visit Auschwitz concentration camp while we're in Krakow. Then go to Budapest, and then we will go to Vienna. I did the extension, so that's why there's a gray line and a blue line. So instead of stopping in Budapest, we're going to continue to Vienna and then fly home from Vienna. So like I said, this is a 12-day trip. So we'll fly overnight to Germany. So 2.5 days of travel total when you include going there and then coming back. So day 1 is flying to Germany. Day 2, we land in Germany. And day 2, it really varies on what we'll do on this day. That's why I says just take a walking tour of Berlin. It really just depends what time we land. If there's any kind of delays or anything like that. And so, one thing I tell students is don't expect a lot on day 2. Be flexible. Anything that we quote unquote miss on day 2, we'll do the next day or fill in, a different part of the tour. So you don't really miss anything, if something happens like that whatsoever. So then we'll get into Berlin, and pretty much every city, as you'll see through this, the way it starts out is you do some kind of tour. It's usually a walking tour. Or it could be a bus tour where we drive around the city and point out different main things, and then we'll do a walking tour through different parts. And the point is we see all the highlights. So like Brandenburg Gate, Checkpoint Charlie, things like that. And so that way, whenever kids have free time, like here later on down here, when they have free time, they're able to explore really on their own and go and see something maybe we didn't get a lot of time to see. So maybe, the tour guide points out something like, you can check that out later during free time. And if kids, if they want to do that, they can do that. And as far as free time, just so you know how this works, and this isn't really true for Belize as much as it is for Europe. So on my European tours, one of the reasons why I only take select students is because I need to know that I can trust these students overseas. And during free time, I allow them in groups of 4, at most 6, to be able to walk around on their own. So they won't necessarily have an adult with them in their group during free time. Now, of course, I have a bunch of ways to make sure that they're safe. One, they have their cell phone with them at all times. I use the Remind app in order to, send out group messaging and things like that to let them know where to be when we're meeting, stuff like that. I clearly point out our meeting point. So before we disband, we're standing at the point where we're going to meet. I make sure they all know the time. They all have a map. They all have circled on the map where we are. I point out the places they can go, so it's within a restricted area. It's not just like, explore the entire city of Berlin. And so they have, limits and things like that. They'll also have a business card to the hotel with the hotel information. They'll have the phone number to our tour director. So they have all of that with them at all times. And of course, they're in a group. And starting next year around November with the group, I'll start meeting about once a month. And I'll be teaching them street smarts. What do you do if you get a little lost? How is it that you find your way back? And just simple things and things like that. But the reason why I do that is because students have different likes and they want to see different things, and I see this as an investment on your part in their education and their experience in life. And students get so much more out of it when you give them the opportunity to go and just explore on their own, and it gets them out of their comfort zone. They're having to use a different language, or at least try to communicate, with English, broken English and stuff like that, with people who don't understand as well sometimes. But the point is that pushes them. And that's when they really grow. And from all the past trips I've taken, the best stories have always come out of free time, when the kids are out on their own in groups and they get to experience the country for themselves and see something they've wanted to see their entire lives. And that's so much better than just me taking 40 kids and walking around the city and saying, this is what we're going to do, I hope you like it. And it's much better just to give them the opportunity to break out. All right, and then so after that, we'll leave Berlin, we'll stop in Dresden on the way to Prague, we'll take a tour of Dresden, and then get to Prague, and then again, we'll start with our walking tours. They get a lay of the city, they see the main sites, and then they get free time in that city. And then we'll go from there onto Krakow. While we're in Krakow, we'll visit the Auschwitz concentration camp. And then we'll take a guided tour of Krakow, and then, of course, again, some free time in Krakow to explore on their own. And then we'll leave Krakow, we'll go through Slovakia, so we're not going to actually stop in Slovakia. We're going to drive through it. It's a small country. And then we'll get to Budapest. In Budapest, we'll take another, again, tour of that, and then we'll have some free time in Budapest. And then I included this, though, as well, so the Budapest baths. And so that's one thing I asked my tour consultant, is it better for free time or the baths? And the baths I've heard are absolutely amazing, so, have that included right now. Of course, if kids choose and decide that they would rather stay in Budapest, that's fine. And then we'll travel from Budapest on to Vienna, and then again, see the main sites in Vienna, and then we'll have some free time in Vienna as well, and then we'll depart for home on day 12. So this is a packed tour. We're seeing a lot of stuff. Traveling through 6 countries. Pretty much covering all Central Europe for the most part. So that's definitely a big tour. So let's go ahead and jump into the presentation. I can skip some stuff after showing you that. So like I said, Best of Belize, 7 days, and then hold on a second, PowerPoint's being silly. There we go. The European trip is 12 days, and we'll go ahead and just keep going. All right, so why travel? Why am I passionate about travel, and why do I do this? And it really goes back to my first experience traveling overseas in high school. I went on a mission trip to Venezuela, and that had a huge impact on me in just every way imaginable. And I realized how much travel really changes you, and how much seeing another culture changes you. And when I became a teacher, I wanted to be able to provide that same experience to my students, and then I learned about educational travel. And so I just jumped on it in 2008 and led my first trip to Italy and Greece. And so ever since then, I've traveled to Greece, Italy, Spain, France, Germany, Switzerland, Austria, England, Scotland, about to go to Ireland. And yeah, it's just incredible and totally addicted to it. And then also just seeing how it impacts students by leading these trips. I've had students go from being introverts and being bullied and things like that. Then they come on one of these trips. Actually, there's a story of that from this past year where a student was bullied and just really had a hard time making friends. And then 2 days into this trip, he just came out of a shell and started making new friends. And now he's a totally different kid, so much so that teachers are emailing me, asking me, like, what changed, like, what happened on this trip for this kid to change that much. And I've seen that happen so many times. And then, of course, students, after traveling with me, have gone on to study abroad in college to Australia, New Zealand, France, Spain, Italy, England, and all of them attribute it back to this experience that really broadened their mind and just realize what is possible and just how big the world is, getting out of this bubble. And so I love doing it because the impact I see on the students and the change that it creates in them. And so here's just a couple of places I've been able to go recently. So this is in Rome this past summer with my group. And then this past October, I also lead training tours for teachers. And so EF Tours will fly me out to Europe, and I'll lead a training tour for teachers that are leading their first trip. And so I led a training tour in October in Madrid, but my wife and I went early and were able to tour some around Spain before I started the training tour. And then back in 2012, I took students in Normandy, northern France, there to Omaha Beach. That was incredible. And then back in 2015, Dachau concentration camp in Munich. And then here's another group in Barcelona. And then another group I took to Paris, which is that same trip, back in 2012. So that's just a few highlights of places I've been able to take students and just the incredible impact it's had on them. And then again, I've already went over this part as far as what we're doing on our tour, so I'll skip that. And then of course, really the goal of educational travel is to help students have more of a global perspective, to learn about other cultures, and of course learn more about our own culture as well by seeing it through the perspective of others and things like that. And of course it helps bring subject to life, and just what you're learning in school brings it to life. And then it helps also on college applications you can put on there, helps you be more set apart on those as well. And so why I picked EF. So there's a lot of tour companies out there I could pick from. EF, though, they've been doing this for 50 years. They have a global presence. They have 500 schools in about 53 countries now, and they have around 37,000 employees. And when I say employees, I'm also including, like me, who would be an independent contractor for them. And then, of course, the educational value. They are accredited just like our school, so they're accredited through TEA as a private school, so students can earn high school and or college credit on these tours. And so they balance with, giving students an amazing experience, make sure they're having tons of fun at the same time they're learning more than, honestly, you'll ever learn in the classroom. I learned more on a 9-day trip than I guarantee you than anything in any class I've ever taken. And it helps enrich me too as a teacher. It helps me to become a better teacher because I know more about what it is that I'm teaching from going on these trips. And so EF, they have incredible experience in the industry. And then really the two main things I looked at, trying to look at it from the perspective of a parent, would be, of course, safety, making sure that their level of safety is high and that they have a good safety record. And then two is value, that you're investing money in this into your child's education and giving them an incredible experience, but you want to make sure it's affordable and it's something that many people can do, and not something that is just for like your very wealthy students and things like that. I want to make it available to as many as possible. All right, so like I said, they're everywhere, which means that if there's emergency somewhere, they are there available to me. I don't have to rely on somebody back in the United States if there's an emergency in Germany. All right, and then going back to commitment to safety. So, like I said, we have a tour director that's with us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And these tour directors aren't just like some person off the side of the street. These are highly skilled people. Give you examples. One of my tour directors one year is a professor at the University of Berlin. Another tour director I had is an archaeologist in Rome. And so, I mean, these are incredible people that have so much experience and knowledge on the history and culture and just everything. And you can ask them anything about Europe in general, or about, of course, the countries they tour, and they're going to know it. And so the nice thing is that takes all the pressure off me to make sure the students are having the best time possible, and I'm just totally focused on them, while the tour director takes care of all the logistics and all those issues. I don't even have to know what's going on for the most part. And then the chaperones. So it's a 6-to-1 ratio for my chaperones. Now, chaperones I have a pretty large list of people that want to be chaperones. So generally, it doesn't go out to parents as far as being chaperones, because I know several people that do it, and I have a lot of people that do it every year with me. And so it just depends. Now, if I get to a pinch where I need some chaperones, then I'll let parents know. And then 24-hour emergency on-call service. So if something happens here stateside or in Europe, there's a way to contact emergency services. If there is emergency stateside, you call them. They will get a hold of me and my tour director within 15 minutes generally. And so we know very quickly, something happens. So if your child needs to come back home because of emergency, that will be covered by EF in most instances, and they'll be able to get it figured out very, very quickly. Peace of mind policy, this means that we won't travel anywhere that's unsafe. So if something happens on tour, in the country that we're in, they'll redirect us and make sure that we're out of that area. And then also, too, if before we leave, let's say a month before, something crazy happened or like a war broke out in Europe, they would change our trip to somewhere else, like Japan or something. And if that happened, even if that was a more expensive trip, they wouldn't charge you anything. So EF Tours would take a loss on that because they want to make sure your kids are safe. And they would rather take a loss, obviously, financially, than, put kids in an unsafe situation. And then my approach to safety, again, picking select students to go. Making sure that my chaperones are well trained and know what they're doing. I, meet with the students leading up to the trip to make sure they understand what my expectations are. And then, I put a lot of trust in the students, but I do draw a clear line. If you do anything that endangers yourself or the group, if you sneak in alcohol or something like that, you sneak out of the hotel, you do anything just straight up stupid, then you're going home at your parents' expense. So, and parents, make sure you realize that too. If your child does something just crazy, they are going to come home. Your credit card will be charged, and it's usually an extra $700 or $1,000 to change a plane ticket and get a direct flight back. And I'll take them to the airport, drop them off, and you'll pick them up. And so that's never happened whatsoever, and I don't expect that to ever happen. But it makes sure that students know that even though these trips aren't sponsored by the district or Marcus High School, that I expect them to behave well, that they're still representing me, and that my reputation is still on the line as well. And so if they do anything that's going to pull into question my reputation as a teacher or a group leader, or do anything to tarnish the ability to lead trips in the future and stuff like that, I'm going to make sure that they get sent home and that they'll be made an example of, basically. And so, I expect them to behave well on these trips. Oh, whoops, there we go. All right, so why group travel? So generally speaking, groups are consolidated with other groups from around the country, and that helps keep the price low. Now, a lot of times my groups are big enough to where I don't have to worry about that. Usually I have a private group. And so that's my goal with every trip I lead, is to have a private group. Occasionally there's a little extra fee. If we fall just a few people short of being able to make a private group, to become private, we may have to pay like an extra $130 somewhere in there, but it's well worth it because it allows much more flexibility on my part with the tour to be able to add in things along the way. Because tour directors know all kinds of little things we can add in, and so it basically allows me to be flexible, and the tour director to be flexible. And it also takes away any headache you might run into if you have a teacher that doesn't really control their students. The other students out of control or aren't respectful. You're not having to deal with that drama or anything like that. I like just having the best of myself, and so that's my goal on every trip. So for departure date, like I already mentioned that pretty much there. So again, the goal is to be a private group. And with Europe, I'm already almost there, so I'm at 31 or 32 paying participants at this point, so I have about 14 more openings. And after that, I'll go into a waiting list. I only need the waiting list to get to about 10 students, and then at that point, I can open up the waiting list, and we'll have 2 private buses at that point. So I'll keep adding students. And then the Belize trip right now I have about 20. It's like 21 or 23 openings. So Belize has a little bit more at this point, but we'll get to that here in a minute. And then the Global Travel Protection Plan. So this is basically travel insurance. Your health insurance most likely won't cover your child overseas. So either way, you would need to add in some kind of international health insurance. But so if you get this with it, it includes that plus many other things. So here covers tour cancellation, interruption, so you get money back. Illness or accident that keeps you from traveling, again, money back. Baggage and property, so if baggage gets lost, kids can go buy what they need to buy, keep the receipts. EF Tours will reimburse them. A flight delay, if we were to miss actual tour time, because of a delay, you would get some money back for that, for the lost day. And then, of course, access to an English-speaking representative at all times, 24 hours a day. So that's all included, and of course, health insurance as well with that in case they needed to go see the doctor. We Share program, I won't really get into this. This is mainly if kids want to do high school credit, then I'll let you know more about this if you want to know. All right, and then what students are responsible for. So spending money. So the price of the trip includes everything except lunch on the European tour. On the Belize trip, everything is covered, including lunch. So for the European trip, it says $30 to $65 per day is sort of spending money. Honestly, that's a little high. I would say closer to $20 to $30 a day for that. So for a 12-day trip, I would say $400 probably total on the low end, $350, $400 on the higher end, $700, somewhere in that range. A lot of times parents make their students take care of their spending money. So that's something, to think about and have your child to save that money up and stuff and take care of their own spending money. Tips. Tips come out to about $10 US per day. So really I collect because I try to give them €10 per day. So really it comes out closer to $15 per day is what I actually collect. This is for a tour director. It's with us at all times. A bus driver, which is with us at all times. And our local guide. So for example, when we go to Auschwitz, our tour director won't give us that tour. The local guide will. And so rounded up, it's around €10 a day, so about $15 a day. I collect the tips before we leave. We'll have a departure meeting about a week before departure, and at that meeting, and that's when you'll bring the tips, and I have the envelopes set up for the bus driver and the tour director and the local guides, and I divide the money up and seal it up. And mainly because I just don't trust students to keep up with their money and have it at the end to be able to give me for tips. All right, passports. Of course, students need to pay for their passports. And so if they don't have a passport, need to get one. I think they're around $130. And then also if they do have a passport, make sure you check the expiration date. If it expires within 6 months of when our departure date is, actually when we get back, really, then it's not valid. So you would have to get a new one. So make sure you check the passport. So again, this is what is included in the price of the trip. So the flights, major carriers, so we're not on like cheap airlines like Ryanair, a private bus, a nice charter bus, hotels and private bathrooms. So we're not in like hostels or anything like that. We're in basically, I'd say, Holiday Inn level type hotels. Breakfast and dinner daily is included. Of course, with Belize, it's breakfast, lunch, and dinner in that price. Full-time bilingual tour director, and they say bilingual. Usually they know like 5 or 6 languages. It's really sickening. Then your local guides, your entrance fees, everything that's on the itinerary. The We Share program, if they want to use that. The travel protection plan that I told you about. Of course, everything in the itinerary and the tour donation page, which I'll show you in a second. All right, so the total price for the Belize trip to this point is $26.50. So that's $256 a month, which you can do a monthly payment plan. And so whenever to sign up to secure a spot is $95, which that's part of this. And then also usually when you sign up, they ask you to pay for the global travel protection plan as well. So 95 plus 155 is what you pay initially to get signed up, and then it'd be $256 a month from that point on. Adults can go as well. It's a little extra for adults, mainly because the hotel room you're getting is a little nicer. Like, well, it's less people in it, and also too, since these trips are very cheap, considering what you're getting. They don't want just tons of adults going. They want students going, and so they don't want like 20 adults and 3 kids. So that's why also that is there for that reason. So $26.50. Just know that this price can change at the beginning of every month. But after you sign up, you're good. So once you sign up, you're locked. But if you wait to sign up, at the beginning of every month, they have to adjust the price according to new airline fees and surcharges and things like that, because you know how plane tickets are always changing in price. So, obviously the quicker you sign up, the better, for that reason as well. And then for the European trip, it's $4,010. So that's a 12-day trip. And it's $302 a month. So again, beginning of each month, that price can change. The adult price is $46.10. And again, the global travel protection plan is the same amount. Doesn't matter how much the trip is. And again, $95 secures the spot. And all of that is part of this. So it's nothing extra or anything like that. All right, so, and of course, another thing too is I mentioned in the letter and in the email that students can invite friends to go. Now, since these are not sponsored by the district or the school, they don't have to go to Marcus. They can go to any school, private school, public school, I don't care what district they're in. In fact, they could live anywhere in the world, honestly. So, I take students a lot of times from different states because, a lot of kids here move from other places, maybe have friends, back where they used to live, and they want to bring them. That's totally fine as long as they can get to Dallas for when we depart and be able to go to the airport with us together. That's really the only requirement. So just making sure they can get here. As far as age, I really want them to be at least in high school. If it's a sibling and they're in 8th grade, finishing 8th grade, going in 9th grade, that's okay. But generally speaking, high school and above, through college, and just adults too is fine. So if they want to take siblings or cousins or something like that, that's totally fine. And they can invite more than one friend. So if they want to invite 5 people, that's totally fine as well. Just know, obviously, since there's a limited amount of spots, the quicker they sign up, the quicker they get their friends to sign up and things like that, the better, as far as that goes. So yeah, they can invite anyone. Just make sure that you as a parent agree with their pick and that it's someone that you would travel with and you think will be a great fit and is very trustworthy. All right, so payment plan. So of course you can pay for the whole thing all at once, and then the highly recommended one is the monthly payment plan. This you can pick out to come out once a month or bi-weekly, just depending on whatever fits your budget. Also, if you need to skip a payment, just let EF Tours know. There's no fee for that whatsoever, so you can skip a month if you need to. The manual payment plan is definitely not as recommended whatsoever. It's a little bit harder to keep up with. It's an extra $50 fee. You got to pay $500 up front, then another $500 within 90 days. And then after that, you make payments as you go, but everything has to be paid 110 days before we leave instead of a month before we leave. So you have to pay it earlier. Basically, that's how that goes. And I highly encourage you to make your kids responsible for at least some of this. So whether it's the spending money or they pay for part of the trip, or if they don't have a job right now, after they get back, they get a job and they pay you back some. Things like that, just to give them some responsibility and ownership of this, because it's a great way to teach them budgeting and things of that sort that would really help them out. So there's a lot they can learn from this beyond just what they learn on the trip. And then there is a tour donation page. This is like GoFundMe. And so they can send this to friends and family, things of that sort, to donate to the trip, basically. And so, in lieu of birthday gifts, Christmas gifts, things like that, they can send this out and just ask for money to help, pay for the trip as well. All right, so for the Belize trip, like I said, about 23 spots available at this point, and I'll do the same thing with Belize, where if it were to fill up, I'll go into a waiting list until I can make sure we get 2 private buses and then go from there. And then to sign up, you'll go to www.eftours.com/ and then you'll type in that number right there. So you can pause the video if you need to go to that. Check out that website. There's an enroll button to click on to enroll. And I put the enrollment window closes April 11th. That's a soft deadline. I just, again, sign up as quickly as possible. I had my first meeting, I had 90 people there last night. There was about 20 people with another, 15 or 20 that were very interested that couldn't show up. There's another 50 people thinking about going. And then, of course, all the people that have signed up, they were talking to their friends and family and stuff. So, signups are coming in. So you want to make sure you get in there, because I'm just going to go in order of when people signed up as far as when the waiting list kicks in and then when we go on to the second bus and stuff like that. So just get in as soon as you can and secure your spot. Now, technically speaking, the last day to enroll for this trip, absolute last day will be somewhere around mid-December. As far as the absolute last day, you have to sign up at that point. All right, then the Europe trip. 14 spots available until we go into a waiting list. Like I said, I only need about 10 on the waiting list until I free them up. And just because they're on the waiting list doesn't mean they won't go. It's just we may not have a second private bus. The second bus may be consolidated. And so, again, same thing. There's a lot of people looking at this. A lot of people are interested. And so sign up as quickly as possible to make sure you secure that spot. The absolute last day, so again, soft deadline. The absolute last day is going to be most likely early March of next year, of 2018. But again, as quickly as possible. So here for this one, you go to www.eftours.com/ and then type in this number and letters, and that will take you to the website where you can enroll and get started. All right, so that is it. So, I mean, if you have any questions or anything like that, please email me, nathanallison84@gmail.com. Let me know if there's anything I can help with. If you, especially if you weren't able to come to the meeting, if you haven't met me face to face, we can set up a time to meet if you would like that. If that would make you feel better, to be able to ask me questions and meet me one-on-one. We can do that either up here at school, or I can meet for coffee or something like that. As well. And of course, feel free to share this video with other people that you would like to invite. So if you decide you're going to send your child, then feel free to share it with other families so they can see this video and then make a decision if this would work for them as well. So again, if you have any questions, email me, nathanallison84@gmail.com. I hope this really answers any questions you do have, and I hope I clarified everything well. So hopefully you won't have to ask me questions. But yeah, just let me know, and I'm so excited for the trips next year, and I really hope that your child's able to travel with me and enjoy this experience. So until we speak again, happy travels.